come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus. And as usual on this Wednesday evening, with me is...
Hi everyone, I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, another co-creator. Welcome across the Caribbean, everyone. Jennifer, how are you?
I am good, and we had some good news in Trinidad and Tobago. Hello?
Vaccines for everybody.
Yes.
Herd immunity in 3 weeks.
We getting to go back out, a little more freedom. We get more of the vaccines. And so, yeah, I'm good. I'm just happy about that news that, yes, things can start, economy could start moving again. Yeah.
Yeah, but today we are jam-packed, not a lot of time for chatting and talking. So we have a big week this week. Our upcoming seminar is on Friday, so get your registrations in. But to warm us up, we have a very, very special and delightful guest today. So without much ado, we are heading straight to In Tune.
Hi, welcome to In Tune segment. And with us, and you may know this face because Maureen has been with us before. So we have with us Maureen Bowen. And Maureen is a lecturer with UWI Roy Tech. And in addition to that, Maureen is also an industrial and organizational psychologist. Now, you may recall on last week, we had Frank Dolly of Dolly and Associates, and Maureen, I have to say thank you for recommending Frank to us. And Frank, spoke more or less on the dynamics of the relationships on the third act stage about, us in community, etc. And again, thanks again for, we got really an overwhelming response, very, very positive. We had persons saying, well, when they check themselves, they realize they have a lot of work to do. Okay, so we thought we should continue just along that vein, but to be a more specific zoning in on those who living alone due to, all the different scenarios. Could be separation, divorce, empty nest, just want to live alone, etc. So we all the different depths. Yeah, we have so many different situations. Some of us made the choice. Some of us that was not forced, but it happened, due to circumstances. And we thought Maureen would be the ideal person to chat with us in her capacity as a psychologist, to chat with us about, these scenarios. So Maureen, welcome again to Connections 50 Plus, and for always supporting us, as we journey here on 5.8G Alive. So Maureen, let me just start by saying, I live alone. So I'm very aware of situation, but I live alone by choice, and I have found, for me, living alone, you have to be a very positive thinking, very, resilient, and taking responsibility. Sometimes I must admit, I wish I had someone to take the stress off of me when I, to make certain decisions. But I have been fortunate because of my background and living alone for a while, learn from not just trial and error, but from chatting with others, etc. So Maureen, could you share with us you know, what you think, and we are talking here, of course, both men and women who living alone, and let me start by saying those by choice before we move on to the other scenarios.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be of service to others, and certainly to share and spend this time with you both. And with all of your other persons who listen to this program.
Yeah.
One of the things about living alone, and I've said this to many people before, even though you live alone, you don't have to be lonely.
Right.
And that's the funny thing, you know, because a lot of people say, oh my God, you live alone. And you're saying by choice. And sometimes I think that that choice is thrust upon us, because a lot of us, you know, we say we're comfortable in our own skin and we're comfortable with that. But I mean, you hear the down tone or the downside to it, which says something like, you know, I have to learn to be resilient, one, and also that there are times when I wish there was somebody else who could take the stress off of me. Now,
true.
It's enough that even though you live alone, there are people to take the stress off of you, and that's the first thing. Many people who live alone think that they don't want to make anybody uncomfortable or unhappy, so they don't ask for help.
Yeah.
And I say, you know, we have a community. Why aren't you asking for help? You may be alone in a physical sense, and you know, you may be alone as it relates to a building. But as a person, you are part of a community, and therefore you must exercise your right to that community. You don't have to pretend to be strong.
Yeah.
You have to first of all tell yourself, look, you surrender a certain aspect of you because of your circumstance or situation. You have made a conscious decision, and for a lot of people to even though they make the conscious decision, to make the switch is very difficult.
Yes.
It's an emotional struggle. It's a mental struggle. For a lot of people, even learning how to make themselves happy in that space and in that environment it's a day-to-day uphill climb. But I have to say this, you don't have to do it alone. Many people have done it before you, and many other people are also doing it. So why aren't we engaging the company of those persons and asking them, soliciting their support and assistance, or even reaching out? A lot of people say, I don't want to be a burden to anybody, and I certainly, I don't know what people are doing, and I don't know whether people want to hear what I have to say. Well, if that is the case, then you have to plan how you're going to operate and execute that engagement with other people.
Yeah.
If you are going to execute that engagement, you have to be pleasant. First of all, you have to be prepared. You have to be organized. You have to be sensible and sensitive, not only to your needs, but to the needs of others. A simple thing. Many times people will, and I'm sure you all would have experienced that, people will call you and ask, how are you? But don't give you 2 minutes to really think about what the question is and what your response might be.
Yep.
They take it for granted. Well, you living alone, you don't have nobody, you don't have no problems, you all right. So nobody, no grandchildren screaming in your head, and you know, nobody, no man asking you for breakfast and where you're going, but that's not so. So I mean, the whole issue of setting your platform, setting your playing field, understanding your position in the choice and decision that you have made certainly does give you a sense of safety and security in you know, as you journey on.
Maureen, in that case, and you're just dealing with, okay, so for those who have made the choice to remain, you know, single, maybe sometimes a temporary choice, but at least, and I like that idea, and yes, you need to plan and understand where you are and you have a community. But there are those who are just trusting in that situation. They may have had, you know, and all the different reasons as we mentioned before. So those who didn't see it coming and never had that experience of being alone, what in that situation is very difficult to even start to even plan.
Right. And for those persons, let's just say that you found yourself in that situation. Yeah, you woke up one day and you realize, look, this is where I'm at this stage in my life. Sometimes initially you just have to stay quiet. In the first instance, I think some of us get too excited and we start to get too frantic and want to arrange and put this in place and put that in place and put the other in place. You don't even know what place you're in. So what the hell are you putting in place?
Yeah.
In a lot of instances, you just have to be still. Be still. Look at your territory. Look at you as an individual. Where are you in your life? You may have mental problems, medical problems, physical problems.
Yeah.
You may have a lot of those challenges, right? You may have emotional challenges. You may have lost someone. Sometimes you may have even lost your home because sometimes you may now have to relocate.
Yep.
An environment that you tell yourself you're going to make yourself comfortable. Sometimes you have to join a mother-in-law suite, something which you never anticipated or wanted because you didn't want to live next to nobody or whatever. So there are a lot of considerations, and your first consideration is to be quiet and to really look at you in your new space and in your new way and kind of find a new way of thinking. Now, part of our challenge at our age is that we set in our ways.
Yeah.
So we're wired in a particular way already, and we think we know. And so it is very difficult for us when circumstances beyond our control thrust us into situations. And even when those circumstances are within our control, they never really work out the way that we think, because we, in a lot of instances, were not the designer and the author of that control. We would like to think that I've made this decision and therefore I know what I'm about and whatever. So again, being practical, being honest, they are all support mechanisms that work for people who find themselves having to live alone. Because you see, part of the whole concept, and people have to recognize that, is that we really don't live alone. Eh? When people say they live alone, I tell them, I said, you leave out the fact that the village raises the child and the village also supports the adult. Mm-hmm. Right? You may be left alone because of the way in which you behave and the messages that you send to the members of your community, and they don't know how to break those barriers and what kind of support you require, so that they leave you to figure it out. But you honestly don't have to. And part of the whole growth and development is helping you to understand what is your new role, what's your new function. And for you to look at yourself and realize that you haven't lost. In fact, you gained. Because you now have an opportunity to be with you, to love you, to cherish you, to be able to support other persons at the level and degree that you choose to do it, if you choose to.
Right.
So that a lot of those factors will play in how you embrace this new stage in your life. Because it is a stage. It is a stage, and we are actors. And now is a time for us to perform, but at a different level, in a different way, and still maintain our identity and our personality and our just our being.
All right. Maureen, before I let Terri-Ann come on here, tell me something. Would there be a difference in terms of the emotions between someone who widowed as against someone who may be going through a divorce?
It's the same level of grief, but it all depends on the personality of the individual. For some people who are getting a divorce, they have left that marriage many years before they finally made the decision to actually physically leave. So that they were preparing themselves mentally, financially, emotionally, spiritually, socially, to finally take that road, right?
Okay.
For persons who have to treat with death, for some of them, if it is they had the opportunity to spend quality time with the individual prior to, and to make arrangements and to listen to that person and the needs of the person and how the person viewed being left behind and that kind of thing. And usually in those kinds of scenarios, you will find that other people join the space to lend support. So you're transitioning, you're accustomed to people being there and supporting or taking on different roles, whether it's your children or your siblings or your friends and that kind of thing. While it is painful because death is something that it's so finite and nobody expects, persons who have those kinds of opportunities certainly do transition better than persons who it was thrust upon, who never saw it coming, who maintained this objectivity and positivity and the hope that, so they lived in that zone of hope rather than really preparing themselves for what if. So it all depends on the person. It depends on the individual's wellness, the individual's ability to be able to treat with truth. Because most of us live in a bubble, and these situations take us out of our bubble, and some of us don't have a parachute. So that's why I like these kinds of programs, because it allows for people to have a parachute without really pointing at them and saying, do have a parachute, and giving them some kinds of ideas and creating the opportunity for growth and development, and and also the recognition that you're not in this alone. Many people who you thought would have had the thing together and know what they're about and whatever are also struggling, but struggling in a positive sense, because it struggling from the point of view of growth. I think that a lot of us too have to start recognizing that, and this is because we've had relationships over the years, like people who are married or people who have had long-term relationships, they have difficulties because they lose themselves in those relationships.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of their time catering to the other partner and never nurturing themselves. And so when this happens and that's their job and that job is no more, they are lost. They just don't know what to do, because some people even say, look, but I've heard people tell their spouses, I hope you go before I go before you, because I don't know how I would live without you.
Yes.
But it doesn't happen that way. And in fact, they have to live, and they lost. Albeit temporarily, and I've seen people who have found themselves in that position and would marry a friend just to ensure that there's somebody there, so that they don't have to do this on their own. And they tell the partner the same way too, I hope you don't leave how much left, because I mean, what will happen to me? I'll have to continue on this journey. Yeah. So there are a number of different perspectives and a number of different thoughts when it comes to individuals. But I'll tell you, all of us have to start to think.
Yes.
We just can't close our eyes and say somebody else will take care of us. We have this way where we give ourselves over to somebody else, and this is why it becomes very difficult when nobody wants to take up the challenge or take up the mantle or take up the job. No matter how much money you have or what you offer them or whatever, they don't want it. So you have to now learn how to want you and to do what you need to do to ensure that you stay well and healthy and productive. And some people are just not able to do that. And that's why, again, I say I'm glad that you ladies have created this space where it's a safe space, and it's an opportunity for people to hear these views and certainly to start to think and start to work on themselves inside out rather than outside in.
Yeah. Maureen, this topic is so very important. And, Jennifer, you talk about aloneness in absolute because a partner has gone, whether it is choice, divorce, or death.
Yeah.
Maureen, there's another type of aloneness that comes in two levels that I think the partner doesn't go. And I am referring here to abandonment. Right. Abandonment, whether it is spouses abandon each other in a relationship, whether it is marriage, common law, long-term, or whatever it is. And you touched on the topic that after you've lived your life, now you've come to this third act. And as we say, I look at the person, I'm now not consumed by children or work, and I am a different person, they are a different person, and there's no connection in life. And you feel abandoned and very alone.
Yeah.
But you still have this body next to you. And the other aspect of abandonment that I would like you to address is where issues of dementia or Alzheimer's comes in. And you, one partner, one person is normal and vivacious, but that person that they expected to continue disappears. So those two dimensions of aloneness as a result of abandonment.
Right. So, Terri-Ann, I want to talk about the first one, where you have a partner and you haven't invested, or they haven't invested in you, or you never. Well, I could look at that two ways. Sometimes people say people don't invest in them, which is not true. You never allow them to invest in you either, because there are many times when and you would know that in your marriage, where your husband would say, "Let me have you do so and so." No. You will take too long. And you know, even when you do it, you wouldn't do it right and have to do it over anyway. So relax yourself, go. And we build those kinds of boundaries and those barriers. And then when we get to this stage now, we expect that I have done so much for you over the years, but you never did anything for me. But you created that environment, right? So you created that domain. Okay, so the thing about it is now, who is going to start this difficult conversation? Because we have to have the conversation. It's about communication. It's going to start a difficult conversation. This is what I need. And even when you start the conversation, how mindful are you of the fact that the person may be incapable? Because over the years, it has not been nurtured, and it hasn't been developed, and it hasn't grown. So it's not that they don't want to, it's that they may be unable to. You know, sometimes we look at people not doing stuff as unwillingness.
Yeah.
And we never understand that it's not that they're unwilling, they just don't know how to. It's not always that people choose not to, or you know, or people are so selfish. Yes, we are naturally selfish, but in some instances we've created that umbrella. And so now that we all of a sudden woke up and realized that we are impotent, or we losing what all of our strengths, or we need support, or we need to be bolstered, we look to our partner, you know, help. I need help. And sometimes too, the language that we use really doesn't explain what is going on with you as well. So, I mean, you know, you never helped me. What does that mean?
Complaining.
You're
complaining, not asking.
And you're not telling me, I need you to do, and you know, and some people, when you say that to them, they will say, well, he's a big man or she's a big woman. She lived with me for 30 years. By now, she's supposed to know.
Yeah.
But people, they grow apart because we've taken different roads and we've developed different aspects of ourselves. And in some instances too, we've even surrendered who we are.
Yes.
I've known many people. I myself find myself in that position now. I'm service driven, and I've taken care of the universe. And when my parents were deceased, and I lost a brother last year, and he was, you know, like my last child because of his drug addiction and stuff like that. I'm lost. I never really nurtured me. So I mean, those are the kinds of conversations that we have to start having. You know, and you can't be afraid, and you can't be intimidated, and even if it is not well received by others, because that's the other thing too. You have to know who and what time and place, because there are some people who will not receive that well and say it's attention you're looking for, or whatever. Yes. Your house, you a powerhouse, you need somebody, you need something, you, nah, come on, Maureen. No, I never expected that of you.
Yep.
And that shuts you down. Yeah, because there's an inner child in all of us that needs to be nurtured, and a lot of our issues may have come from childhood. We lived a lot of our parents' behaviors and attitudes, and we did not even recognize it.
Yep.
Because that's the way we were socialized. So when you talk about isolation from that point of view, I would speak to things like communication, vulnerability, allowing for others to clearly understand. So being more specific rather than general about what your needs are and how you feel about things, and certainly not having expectation of others.
Maureen, if I can ask you, before we go on to the other aspect of abandonment, I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago. And this is a person who is divorced, has been divorced for a long while and is balanced, has adult children, and everyone communicates and works very well. And the person, however, is the nerve center. All children and grandchildren and in-laws, and to an extent the ex-spouse, that person is the nerve center. And in a very short period of time, everybody went somewhere. Migrated, left and lived in a different region. And in a very, very short period of time, the world was like, excuse me, where am I? And one of the conversations that we were having was trying to, let me ask you the question, because no solution came from it because I am not competent to do it. How does a person begin to find a path? So what you said, we know you have to have the communications and so, but how do you begin to find a path or a direction to begin to reconstruct? And I think it will apply even to the situation, Jennifer, that you referred to, whether it is divorce or death. You know, people who are looking at us, I think this would resonate with them. How do they begin to find themselves again or recreate themselves?
Well, one of the first things I recognize in those kinds of scenarios is this whole thing about choice. And even people who find themselves in that situation now recognize that because you invest in people, they don't have to reciprocate.
Yes.
So you better know very early. And Sean and I have had this conversation many times because we've seen it, we know it, right? So you have to know very early that what you're doing is because you choose to do. And if you don't choose to do it, then no is the answer, and get jiggy with it. And start really saying what you need for you, right? And doing what you need for you. More importantly too, I think for a lot of people, this whole issue of people walking away, we should have that expectation. Nothing in life is forever. Why are you centering and revolving your life around other people? You have to know that at some point, just like children, you carry them and ultimately they walk. And then they walk away. Sometimes they look back just for reassurance. So at some point, you of yourself have to start to feel safe with you. But for a lot of us, we're scared.
Yes.
We're scared, you know, because we feel we're not needed, we're not wanted. We feel that we're useless, but you could never be useless to you.
Yeah.
So the first thing is identifying that you are a person. Many times I look in the mirror and I say, you know, hey, I don't even know who you are. Maureen, who are you? What are you about? You know, what do you want to do? And if you want to do nothing, you don't want to do nothing, fine. And who vexed for that lose?
Yeah.
Right? But just for today, what's your plan? What's your plan? I mean, a lot of us have long range goals, but COVID has reminded me severely. Forget about tomorrow, it may never come.
Yep.
I live for today, you know, and I live with it. And I think for a lot of
especially
people,
at this stage, at this stage.
Yeah. And I think you just have to be enthusiastic about life and living.
Yeah.
a lot of people want other people to create the opportunities and the avenue for them to be happy, right? But a lot of your internals, your intrinsics, your happiness begins inside of you. If you're not comfortable in your own skin, and I mean, let me tell you, that is hard work, yeah? That is hard work. I not pretend, because I catch my auntie, and then, but that's still, so that's real hard. No, it's hard, but it's a must. It's a must. And you know, and also the thing is that you can't expect everything all at once. Yeah. Because people are like that too. Once we make a decision, we want to see it roll, tick, 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 tick. Because remember, we were controllers.
And I think that is the issue. That's the issue. Yes.
Yeah. Tick, 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 tick. So that once that's not happening, we feel like, nah, boy, nah, this will come inside and things falling apart. But no, sometimes, you know, it's about reinventing yourself and recreating new opportunities for you. And the opportunities may be alien to what people expect. Because I have a lot of friends who were professionals and who now doing like gardening, simple things, and painting, you know, and just kind of baking and all of those kinds of things, just reconnecting. And those are the things I'm seeing popping up in our groups and stuff like that. And they don't want to talk about nothing real, and people say they don't want to talk about anything real, but that is very real. It's real to them, and you know, you have to validate those kinds of efforts, you know, but you have to make the start. Just like service begins with you, change begins with you.
Yes.
You have to stop dwelling on your past and dwelling on how other people see you, and dwelling on how disappointed or whatever expectations you have, or dwelling on your past accomplishments, or feeling that, you know, you wanted to continue the way you are, because none of us are the way we were.
That's it. You are enough as you are.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's the kind of conversations we have to have with people. I think we like to reminisce too much. If you know that reminiscence is a bitch.
Oh gosh, yes.
Jesus of Nazareth. You know,
yes.
You know, the breast going south, all kind of thing happening, the face are looking the thing, you take the thing, but you're still saying, you know, I remember in my 30s, I don't even remember nothing about 30s. Yeah, I just know today, you know, and you know, and that's the thing. And somebody has to bring people back on track and back to today. But we tend to tolerate a lot of, you know, we just say, well, she comfortable there or he comfortable there. But no, that is not comfort. That's being uncomfortable as far as I'm concerned, because it means that you're not reflecting on who you are and where you are today, and what you need to nurture you today to be the best you that you can be today, full stop.
Excellent. And now we could look at abandonment, because
right, yes,
mind has gone.
Yes, and my thing is, even in those scenarios, because you know I have had that experience, right, with my parents and stuff like that. I don't think it's abandonment in as much as it is fear. When you have grown accustomed to a certain pattern, and you think you've charted this course that this person is going to do certain things moving forward, and there's reliance, you can in fact rely on that person, that element of it creates distress and discomfort, right? So you try to do anything to make sure that you can bring it back. But the other thing too is that in some instances, the person who is feeling this sense of isolation is really feeling a sense of loss and grief.
Yes, grief.
Prior to the actual event. Because there was nothing that could have prepared you to take up your new role. Nothing. And also the comfort that you would have gotten from having this person in your life, and you know, the joy and everything that, you know, was brought on as a result of this relationship. It's really very distressing to see it slipping away, and you have no control, and there's nothing you could do to stop it. And for a lot of people too, what they experience in psychology, we talk about it, survivor guilt.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and people associate that only with death, but it's not only with death. In those kinds of situations, you
Yes.
experience survivor guilt.
Probably worse because the
And
person is
worse.
there.
Exactly, worse.
Yeah.
Why her and not me?
In death, you could move on. You could give yourself permission to move on. But if the person
Yeah.
is there, you
Correct.
can't move on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
And also you have a struggle as well because people have a greater expectation of you in terms of care, the quality of care that you are to render to that individual. But if you've never done it before, and if you don't know how to do it, and you expected that that person would have been doing it for you,
Especially if the person was the caregiver and you were the recipient of the care.
tick, 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 that person just structured everything.
Yes. Yes.
What's up with that?
Yes. 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 No, they are really this issue of aloneness in all of its forms. It really presents a huge, and you know, Maureen, I want to ask you, it also matters at which stage we are, because we look at stages on the stage, whether you're in your 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80,
Correct.
how you handle aloneness by
Correct.
choice or abandonment or whatever.
Correct.
What do you see with the different groups of people?
And it's interesting you talk about 50, 60. You know, part of the struggle with the way in which we can't treat with aloneness and even loneliness is the fact that if you look at the way we are programmed, by 60 you retire. So instead of thinking that you're doing growth and development and you still have the potential, you're thinking in terms of diminishing in value.
Going down the hill, going down the hill, over and down.
And I have to remind people that 60s in your 40s, so don't get tired with that. Don't come around me. I mean, it was amazing when I heard about it with COVID, and they talked about old people, and I know
Senior citizens. Yeah.
those people are my colleagues, my friends, my compatriots. So every time I ask them how old they were,
with your comorbidities.
I say what? I said they need to check themselves before they wreck themselves, because there's no way that we are going to put ourselves in that category where that dependency. But we have been socialized into that regard. So when we find ourselves actually in that position, a lot of that is what creates any problem. So we have to start reorienting the thinking of even the persons in their 20s, 30s, and 40s to be prepared for the times in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, when they will have to take an account for themselves, and they will have to take ownership, and they would have to be doing stuff and actually even telling people what they want done. Because there are lots of people at our age, I say to them, I said, you know, you should have an advocate, and they don't even understand what that means. And they said, what do you mean an advocate? I said, I have a spouse. That is not an advocate. Nope. You have to have somebody who will speak for you in the event that a situation presents, and the person must speak for you based on what you want, but you would have had to tell them.
You have to know first what you want.
You have to know
first what you want.
Right? I mean, it took people a long time to even do a will, and even with that,
that's still
that speaks for you beyond the grave. And a lot of my friends are still dying and leaving everything intestate, and have the children complaining and quarreling and fighting and scrambling, and have to be in the middle of all that and whatever. And I said, but your parents, they didn't want that. How you know? And it's true.
That's very true.
So
at the different stages,
we have to start thinking about those things with our children, with our spouses, with our friends, you know, we and even with other people who may find themselves struggling and being uncertain and being unwilling or being unsure. We have to say, hey, this thing is a reality, you know, and it's coming if God allows you to live. So you need to we need to have the conversations. We need to have a sense of safety and security within ourselves, and we need to understand What's our purpose? We talk about purpose-driven life, and we talk about visions and stuff like that. But most of our purpose revolves around our partners, our children, maybe our community groups. Like I know a lot of people my age have been drowning themselves in a lot of helping the whole world and saving the world. And I said, look, get up and get a man, sit down somewhere, take a break. No. Because all you're doing there is filling a void.
Yes.
They're gonna need you no more. And then what happens? Yeah. You still don't know you. So spend a little time with you now. You know, make it happen. Learn to love you. Learn to see you for you. Learn to be able to tell people what you want, what your needs are, and how and if you don't want, that you don't want. And that's something that women in particular, we want socialized that way. We were socialized from very early to take care of everybody else. We took care of our brothers, sisters, our parents, because we are the nurturers by nature. Now I'm seeing the younger generation, they're not buying into that rule at all.
Nope.
They're not, thank God for that. But I mean, it is viewed as competition, and the male gender is having a hard time finding their place and knowing what their rightful place is, you know, because of the aggression of females and stuff like that. So now we have to temper judgment with mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Maureen, again, men, as the older men, say 60s and 70s, find themselves much prefer having, because they are accustomed with the woman, as you say, as nurturers, much prefer having a woman there with them to do most of the chores, because as far as they're concerned, and I just more or less generalizing here, because I find the majority of the men I know who may have lost their spouse or separated for all the different reasons, when they talk, they say, Jennifer, I can't live alone, you know. I need someone with me to be there, you know, to support. When I say support, then be financially, but, you know, emotionally to be there.
That support is, validation, but a lot of them it's about recognition and certainly the whole sense of being important or being recognized or being useful and that kind of thing. Because remember that as hunters and gatherers, has their role. They know how to do that. So, I mean, they have to be doing that for somebody. And usually there's reciprocity. As a result of doing X, I will get Y. And that's the conditioning. It's classical conditioning. That's the conditioning. That's the socialization for some of them, right? And there are some men too, and I've found that has been happening in recent times, who finding themselves alone have rediscovered who they are. I mean, they've gotten into different kinds of activities and sports and exercise and even, you know, even support for others and that kind of thing, which is also good. And I say, don't wait until you find yourself in a situation where you are alone to rediscover those things and to get into those activities and stuff like that. You should be doing that even with a partner. And not encourage any partner to do it with you, because that's another thing too. When you find comfort doing something, you want the whole world to do it because it's so good. You know, I hear a lot of people now, Maureen, you know, health-wise, do this, do that, da-da-da-da-da. We're really not the same. We may be similar in that we have certain things, that's recognizable and stuff. But the way in which we want to approach it is very different. So don't come and tell me that it, you know, I'm glad that it works for you and I'm happy that it does, but at the same time, you know, don't say, see, so if you don't do so and this happened to you and that happened to you, don't look at me and don't expect me and whatever. No, people must be comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
Great to hear that there are things that are working for you and stuff like that. But at the same time, you can't be ramrodding it down other people's throats and thinking that people are not happy for you. That's another thing too that we have to relearn. We have to relearn how to be happy for others.
Yeah.
It's interesting how sad we are.
Yes.
We don't validate other people. It's sad. And if you say it, you're grudgingly say it, you know, like people will say, she really lucky, she living alone, but at the same time, wow, boy, she must be a miserable hag because she ain't
Quite correct, Maureen.
contradiction here. Am I happy or am I a hag? And where you getting that interpretation from? And certainly, that's part of the thing about being happy, living on your own and not feeling isolated. When you are actually happy for others, when you validate other people, you can actually sit there and look and see and enjoy other people's victory and other people's, activities and talk to them about it and hear how they achieve it and not feel a sense of bitterness and rejection and isolation and aloneness as a result. Because you could get up and do something too. Certainly, you could do something for yourself as well.
Yeah. And you find, I think on that point, you made the point that men would, after separation, whatever their alone status is, yes, sometimes it's conditioning. I'm accustomed to having someone, but I think they're driven by wanting to continue with life and having a good life.
Yeah,
and therefore, go back to, so okay, one chapter is closed, it is done. But on the other part, the same thing may happen to women, and it is how it will look. And I can't go on. The separation has occurred. Move on, continue with life, and it comes back to that, I don't know what to call it.
Call it bitterness and call it self-sabotaging behavior, right? That's what you call it.
Good, from the professional, good.
And self-sabotaging behavior. Because I'm telling you, it is no surprise that relationship has ended. And if it's a surprise to you, you were in another relationship and not that one.
Yep.
So we've got to be honest and we've got to be truthful with ourselves and we've got to own what is ours, because that's another thing. I mean, people tend to look to scapegoats and to blame other persons, but we would have actively participated and contributed to the outcome. And sometimes it's that participation to the outcome may have started even from the onset.
Yes.
What I mean by that is that you knew that there were certain things that
you intended to change. You intended
to change. Irreconcilable, right? And you lived with it and you accepted it and you tolerated it. And now you've gotten to the stage where it has overwhelmed you and therefore you've decided to do something about it. And I applaud you. I applaud anybody who is able to have that conviction, because I've seen people suffer in silence in relationships just to stay married. I've seen them suffer. Right? And even when the person died, they continue to suffer because they suffer guilt and shame and blame.
Yes.
And they never really lived, right? Because most of us, what we do is exist. We really do not live, because we are, and that's the thing I like about being at this stage in my life. I don't give a rat's what anybody says. And I make no apology for saying that. Because I've lived too much of my life based on what other people said. And those same people turned on me and turned against me. So now I have a sense of confidence. And I mean, I am very respectful of other people's opinion, but it does not define my choices. And we have to get there. I'm very, very respectful. And sometimes people do say things that I do have to sit up and take notice, because there's truth. There's truth. And the thing is, if it's truthful, I acknowledge that, yes, you are right. Yes, you are right. And I may even be in a place where I would say, while you are right, it would mean that we are not good for each other. Because I don't have any intentions of doing otherwise. But I do respect and appreciate, and moving forward, I know that if you are in my space, what you require or what is needed and whatever, but I'm not willing to make the sacrifice.
Well, I think, Jen, this is allowing us, and I'm looking at time, and we have just about 10 more minutes to segue, and with Maureen's approval, we can probably segue into one of the areas that we, in terms of reclaiming ourselves, and starting to build back, because your relationship with you is a very intimate relationship. It is a sensual relationship.
Yeah.
And many of us have a difficulty with that. And that difficulty ripples out to everything else. Would you
Correct.
agree, Maureen?
I agree with that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And until we stop being people pleasers and start understanding us as a being, then and only then can we reclaim our independence and autonomy and feel comfortable to live alone in our own skin.
And be a better partner to somebody
be a
if
better
one comes
partner.
around.
If one comes, exactly. But and that's the other thing too, with selecting a partner. I think that too many of us, we allow people to choose us. The reason that I'm alone is because I'm going to choose next time. I have a list, and I make no apologies. I have a list.
Mm-hmm.
And there are checks and minuses. And if the pluses are not in excess of the minuses, I'm not even worrying to engage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine with me too, because there's so many other things I can do with my time.
Exactly.
And it's not like I'm trying to eliminate anybody, but I've lived in other people's skin and lived in their shoes, and it's squeezing, and I've had enough of that. And I think for a lot of us, we have to be honest about that. I mean, yes, you compromise, but when there's a balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's never, and by balance, I want to be clear about that too, it's never 50-50.
Yes. It is what is appropriate.
Exactly.
It's
At
what's
some point, you
appropriate.
have to be on the 70, you know, so you don't mind being on the 30.
Nice.
So Maureen, definitely, it is about us as understood that stage, changing that mindset. All those beliefs we had before that you can't love yourself and, you know, you have to give all. But when we reach at this stage, we realize, no, we have to be responsible for who we are, make our choices, make ourselves happy. And Terri-Ann mentioned earlier about, it's about self-love.
Yeah.
And I want to, before Maureen, I want to go into an area, just to engage you a bit, because we are having on Friday our program, which is sex and self-care for the 50 plus. And you know all the information you shared with us, very valuable information, especially for those who believe they are alone, you know. And we have so many hang-ups, a lot of hang-ups, and especially surrounding the sex and the self-care, and as Nicole says, sexual health. And I have found from persons who have called me about the program and chatting that our mind is just one way. When we think sex, we think sex with a partner and not about sexual health and ways to make ourselves happy and love who we are. So I just want to engage you on what, you know, you would have seen our program and you may have heard Onika chat a bit. I would love for you to give a message around that to our 50 plus, and I saying 50, but especially, and Terri-Ann was saying that, I would say more the 60 and the 70s, those are the 60s and 70s who have this sort of thinking around sexual health.
Right. And so, Jennifer, you know, part of the challenge that we have at this is the whole thing that we were socialized to believe that sex had to do with reproduction. Yes. And so a lot of people at our age, because we're no longer reproducing, we think that component of us is dead. But we have to look at our life holistically, mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially. And therefore, we have to nurture all of the quadrants. And this is a quadrant that I think is important. And we can no longer mask or hide or deny that we are sexual beings. as human beings, we are sexual beings, and that a lot of the conversation is not about physical sex, but it's about understanding us as sexual beings, and certainly appreciating who we are and getting that sense of comfort and support from a person who is knowledgeable and specializes in the area. And I certainly have shared it with a number of my groups, and I've said to them, look, this is a healthy conversation. Just as you would go to look at your vision and your hearing, and you make sure that you keep your dental appointment, you have to think about your sexuality because it's part of who you are, right? And even if it is that you are not engaging in a relationship, because people may say, well, I'm not in a relationship.
Yes.
The thing is that a relationship may come, and even if not, there are certain things that you can do for yourself to make you more happy and more comfortable and more pleasured. And so why not engage in the conversation?
So Maureen, keep safe, you know.
I shall. You
and all the best to you.
And thank you again for the opportunity to be of service to others.
You are so
and
welcome.
Myself, actually.
Yes.
And to myself. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Terri-Ann, I mean, it's really great. You know, we had Frank the week before, now we have Maureen, and just tied in. But the message to our 50 plus cohort is listen, change that mindset, you know, and
Stop
enjoy
being
life.
Afraid of yourself. Stop being afraid of yourself. Listen, there's no one to, this is our time. Who you accountable to? Frank said we have 168 hours in a week to manage. And here is Maureen reinforcing the same thing. We need to take responsibility for ourselves. We are adults now. Let's get
think about today, you know, today, live for today.
Yep. So, Jennifer, this was a wonderful show. And remember, everyone, we're going to run our clip again. You have to remember, register. The session is on Friday. So we'd see you.
Just have about 4 more days.
Yes. No, just have 3 days.
3 days. Oh, yes.
Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
So say that. Just have 2 days.
It's just 2 days. Yeah, it's Friday.
Good. So you have 2 days. So see you then. Bye.
Bye.
50 Plus Tribe and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.